8 terrifying mythical creatures you've never heard of. The Nuckelavee. On the Orkney Islands of the north coast of Scotland, there is one creature that fishermen would not even speak its name out loud after dark. They believe saying it could summon it. That creature is the Nuckelavee, and once you see what it looks like, you will understand exactly why. The Nuckelavee is described as a horse and a rider fused into one single body, except it has no skin, none. Its yellow veins pulse openly across raw red muscle. Its single giant eye burns like fire, and its breath alone is said to wilt crops and sicken livestock from a distance. It rises from the sea to stalk the shoreline, and it hates nothing more than the smell of burning kelp and the sound of running fresh water, because both of those things can stop it in its tracks. Islanders say an entire epidemic once swept through Orkney's horses and people alike, and they blamed the Nuckelavee poisoned breath for every death. To this day, some older residents still won't walk the shore alone on a moonless night, because if the sea mist rolls in and you hear hooves on whetstones, the old warning still holds. Don't look back and don't say its name. Ogopogo, British Columbia, Canada. Long before Loch Ness had its monster, Canada had its own lake demon, and this one demanded payment just to let you cross the water alive. The indigenous swept muck and silks peoples called it Naitaka, the water spirit, and they knew exactly where it slept, a cave beneath a cliff called Squally Point. Anyone crossing Okanagan Lake had to leave a tribute, usually a small animal, or risk its wrath. One legend tells of a chief who mocked the creature and refused to pay. As his canoe reached open water, the lake began to boil, the surface split open, and a massive serpent dragged his entire body down into the dark, whipping up a storm with his tail as it vanished beneath the waves. Today, the Naitaka goes by a gentler name, Ogopogo, described as a 30 to 50 feet long with dark, moody humped skin and a head like a horse, a goat, or even a dragon. Sightings of that long, dark hump moving against the current are still reported every single summer, and locals who live on that lake will tell you they know exactly what they saw. Boitata, Brazil. Deep in the Amazon, there is a guardian that only shows itself when the forest is already burning. Indigenous legend describes a giant snake made entirely of magical fire, its names coming from Otupi, Amboy, snake, and Tata, fire, and in some tellings its whole body is covered in hundreds of glowing eyes that never blink. The boitata sleeps in rivers and dark corners of the jungle, and only wakes when poachers or arsonists try to burn the trees down. The moment fire touches the forest, it rises as a wall of blazing light and feeds on the eyes of its victims to fill its own flames. Anyone who looks directly at it is struck blind, driven mad, or burned to ash where they stand. The only way to survive it is to freeze completely, hold your breath, and keep your eyes shut tight until the flame passes by. Long before anyone talked about environmental protection, this legend was already punishing anyone who dared to destroy the forest. Nature itself, cast as a guardian with teeth and a very long memory. Groot slang, South Africa. In the Witwatersrand desert, legend says the gods once made a creature too powerful to exist. The size and intellect of an elephant fused with the venom and stealth of a giant serpent. Realizing their mistake, they tried to split it in two separate species, the elephant and the snake. One original beast escaped before the split was finished. That beast, the Gruslang, fled underground into a bottomless cave called the Wonderhole, set to connect all the way to the Orange River and to be packed with an unimaginable hoard of diamonds, stretching up to 50 or 60 feet long. It lures elephants inside to devour them and drags cattle and humans off the river bank into the water without a sound. Its one weakness is greed. Legend says if a victim offers it enough precious gems, it might let them live in exchange for adding to its hoard. The Grootslang has guarded its treasure at the bottom of the cave for thousands of years, and treasure hunters still whisper about finding the Wonder Hole. Jorogumo, Japan. In Japanese folklore, there is a predator so patient it waits 400 years for its first kill. A Joro spider that survives that long gains the power to transform into a stunningly beautiful woman. She's called the Jorogumo, the entangling bride, and she waits near waterfalls, especially the famous Jordan Falls, for men to find her. In one tale, a woodcutter falls for a woman playing music by the waterfall, visiting her again and again, without realizing she's slowly wrapping him in invisible. magical silk and draining his life force with her venom. In another version, she appears as a young mother and hands a stranger her baby. The second, he holds it. It bursts into a heavy sack of spider eggs, and her true monstrous form is revealed. By the time her true form shows itself, it's already too late. He's bound in silk, paralyzed, waiting to be devoured later at her leisure. The Jorogumo remains one of the clearest warnings in Japanese folklore that in the world of yokai, appearances are almost always deceiving, and the most beautiful things can be the most deadly. The Bunyip of Australia. In the swamps and billabongs of Australia, Aboriginal legend warns of a creature so old that its description changes from the tribe to tribe, because almost nobody who gets close enough to see it clearly lives to describe it the same way twice. They call it the Bunyip, and it does not live in the water so much as it owns it. Descriptions vary wildly. Some say it has flippers and tusks, like a walrus. Others describe feathers, a horse's tail, or a booming call that carries for miles across the outback at night. What every version agrees on is what happens next. The Bunyip drags anyone who wanders too close to the water's edge down into the mud and drowns them, and it is said to have a particular hunger for women and children who stray too far from camp after dark. Early settlers heard its call so often that they started fencing off water holes entirely, and some outback communities still warn children never to swim alone at dusk. Nobody has ever agreed on what the Bunyip actually looks like, and that might be exactly why the legend has survived for so many thousands of years. Strzyga, Poland. In Polish legend, some people are cursed the moment they are born, with two hearts, two souls, and two sets of teeth already growing in. In life, they are completely harmless, though neighbors often shunned them for strange signs like sleepwalking or adult teeth coming in before the baby teeth ever fell out. The real horror only begins after they die. Because they have two souls, only one moves to the afterlife. The second is straight trapped inside the corpse, reanimating it as a Strzyga, a bloodthirsty revenant that rises at night, often transforming into a monstrous owl, to hunt the living and devour their internal organs before hitting again by dawn. To stop one, villagers buried the body face down with a sickle across its neck, so if it tried to rise, it would either dig itself deeper into the earth or cut its own head off trying. It's a dark reflection of medieval life, where sudden deaths and unexplained plagues always needed a monster to blame. The Ghoul, Arabian Peninsula. Long before it became a generic fantasy monster, the Ghoul was one of the most feared beings in the pre-Islamic Arabia, a type of jinn made of smokeless fire. But unlike other jinn who might grant wishes, this one is obsessed only with death and decay. Ghouls haunt graveyards, ruins, and lonely desert crossroads, digging up fresh graves to feed on the dead. But they don't stop there. They shape-shift into a beautiful woman or a lost traveler to lure merchants off the safe caravan road and deep into the wastes. And once their victim is exhausted and alone, they reveal their true hunched, hairy form, complete with the hooves of an ass, and devour them alive. In a culture built on respect for the dead, the Ghoul was the ultimate corruption of that rule, a monster born from the very real danger of losing your way in the desert, where one wrong turn of the path could easily be our last. 8 continents, 8 legends, 1 truth. Every culture on earth has used monsters to explain what they couldn't understand, to enforce the rules of society, and to warn people away from real danger. From a skinless demon stalking a Scottish shoreline to a creature in the Australian outback that nobody can even agree what it looks like. These stories prove that no matter where you're from, humanity has always given a face to its deepest fears. Which one would you least want to meet in the dark? Tell me in the comments and subscribe if you want the next date.